these vile men who preyed on them, in some instances girls of the age of 12, giving them drugs and vodka, they're the ones to blame, Malik.
Sometimes, one simple question is enough to expose an argument that can't stand on its own. That's exactly what happens in this exchange as Nick Ferrari refuses to let the conversation drift away from the victims and the documented facts. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Ferrari begins by reminding the caller who the real responsibility belongs to: the men convicted of targeting vulnerable girls, some as young as 12. Instead of staying focused on those crimes, the caller argues that mentioning the ethnic background of some of the offenders is the real issue. Ferrari doesn't accept that shift. He immediately brings the discussion back to the convictions and the victims, and from that moment, the caller's argument quickly begins to fall apart.
To you, sir, and I'm more interested in learning from you because obviously you got more experience and education than me.
Well,
so please explain that to me, that more than a decade, we are not able to take care of the rights of the victims, rather than we are interested in knowing and discussing the ethnicity and the nationality and the religion of a person. And when we are talking about that, please explain, maybe I'm missing something out here. Have you ever discussed the ethnicity and nationality of Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, Glenn Maxwell, Jimmy Savile, Tommy Artian, Alexandrovich? Have we ever discussed this in those parameters? Why are we picking up on something, or why are we finding scapegoats?
Because in this instance, virtually all the members of the gang, the so-called grooming gang, were of Pakistani origin. And they operated...
Their nationality...
hold on, they operated as a gang, sir.
Their nationality and ethnicity is important rather than the crime. Rather than the crime itself, or rather than the victims themselves.
No, but so... When it comes to journalism or news, you want to get as many facts as you possibly can. So had they all been, I don't know, members of the Catholic Church, had they all been the same football fan, if they all followed Leeds United, anything like that is a common denominator is of great interest in the news business. That is why, when they are all but I think one of Pakistani origin, that is obviously going to be something that informs the story. Our job is to tell you as many of the facts as we can, and for you then you're fully armed and you can make whatever decisions or views on stories that you need. That's what we do.
Okay, so basically for the mistakes of few people, or for the crimes of
I don't know if it is a few people, actually. I think sadly there's probably more of it going on than we imagine.
Let's say 1,000, let's say 1,000, let's say 10,000. You are talking about discussing a whole nation of 250 million people and putting them under one particular spotlight.
Well, don't you think it's relevant that they all share the same background?
Well, then in that case,
but
again, may I say...
Well, no, just answer I have answered yours. Do you think it's relevant that they share the same background?
It would only be relevant if you are fair and discuss the ethnicity and nationality of Jeffrey Epstein, Glenn Maxwell...
No, you're getting it wrong. I'm going to say because they weren't operating in a gang.
Harvey Weinstein...
No, hold on, sir. They weren't operating in a gang. Jimmy Savile was not operating in the same gang as Jeffrey Epstein.
So Jeffrey Epstein was not a gang. It was not a gang.
No.
So all those thousands and hundreds of thousands of pages released by FBI were not relating or indicating about the gang activity.
Malik, how many people have gone to jail apart from the Maxwell girl? How many people have gone to jail as a result of the Epstein files?
Well, that's what you to find out. And I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know.
Two. One was him, and he took his life. Well, reportedly he took his life, and the other is Ghislaine Maxwell. There are, sadly, scores of people who've been involved in grooming gangs across the country who are doing time, all of whom track back to the same origin. I don't know why you won't confront what's a rather unfortunate fact and reality that needs to be addressed. Why would you not seek to look at that and work out exactly what's going on? Why would you not applaud the fact that the government has directed £65 million into trying to try and find out the cause and reason for these grooming gangs? That's something we want to celebrate, isn't it, Malik? Or do you want it thrown under the carpet, a carpet thrown over it, and the facts covered up? Is that what you want in reality?
No, I am not able to understand is after more than a decade, government is not able, or the media is not able to actually identify the root causes rather than playing the game of ethnicity and nationality.
What do you think the root causes are?
These children who were vulnerable, why were they vulnerable in the first place?
Because
What measures and safeguards have the government paid over
because sadly, in some, let me answer. In some instances, they are vulnerable because they come. I hate the expression, but they come from what are called broken homes. They come from where there might only be a single parent. Sadly, he or more likely she is possibly involved in some kind of substance abuse. So when suddenly someone comes along and shows them a bit of affection, gives them trainers and meals, and then suddenly vodka and possibly drugs, then you've got the girl, haven't you?
Thank you very much for highlighting that. You again missed the point. They were in the care homes. Majority of them were in the care homes.
Not all by any means.
Majority of them were in the shelters.
Many
of them were vulnerable because they were from the broken families and they were not looked after. The society has actually thrown them out as rubbish.
Malik, no, sir. Nothing is an excuse for the behaviour that those girls endured. Nothing excuses that. Whether they were from a care home or whether they were from a mansion, nothing excuses the behaviour of that man. Don't try and find some kind of rationale.
That's offensive. Me completely wrong.
That is offensive, and you're close to a red card. That is absolutely preposterous, sir. That you would suggest, because these girls are vulnerable and they find themselves in care homes, that society has failed them. Society has not failed them. These vile men who preyed on them, in some instances girls of the age of 12, giving them drugs and vodka, they're the ones to blame, Malik.
Okay.
Fine. 8:45, LBC News headlines.
And that's what made this exchange so memorable. Instead of allowing the discussion to drift away from the central issue, Ferrari repeatedly brought it back to the documented facts. When the conversation started moving toward broader social explanations, he reminded the caller that those wider debates don't erase the actions of people who were convicted in court. For years, there has been public criticism that some institutions were too cautious when discussing certain aspects of these cases, worried that the conversation could inflame tensions or lead to accusations of prejudice. That criticism has remained part of a much larger debate about transparency, accountability, and public trust. You could hear that same tension in this exchange. Rather than staying focused on the offenses and the victims, the discussion risked shifting toward topics like broken families, social disadvantage, or systemic failures. Those issues may be worth discussing separately, but they don't change the facts of the criminal convictions or who was held responsible. Ferrari refused to let that distinction disappear. His position was simple: accountability begins by acknowledging what actually happened. Difficult conversations don't become less true because they're politically sensitive, and uncomfortable facts don't stop being facts simply because they make people uneasy. Whether viewers agreed with every point or not, this debate struck a nerve because it reflected a wider public conversation about how difficult issues should be discussed. For many people, it served as a reminder that honest debate starts with the evidence, stays focused on the victims, and resists attempts to sidetrack the discussion away from the documented facts.